Idly ho, students. Mr. Kaczynski. I've got the solutions to the Say It With Symbols Investigation 2 checkup. All right, kind of combining equations together. Here's the theme off the start. An lemonade stand comes up with the following equations for income and expenses based on cups sold. So here we go. We got income, 0.50C plus 10, and expenses 0.10C plus 15. Hopefully when you guys look at equations like this, you're always thinking about them in real world terms. I am. For my income, I know that I'm going to make at least $10 a day, even if I sell 0 cups, and I'm making an additional or pulling in an additional 50 cents per cup. That's what that means to me. My expenses are, it costs me 10 cents per cup, and I know I'm going to have to pay out $15 every day in other expenses. Who knows what that is? Advertising, whatever. All right, so if 100 cups are sold, what was the income? Income's underlined. Okay, well, there's our income equation right there. Income is 50 cents per cup plus $10. So if it's 100 cups, I'm going to do 50 cents times 100 cups plus $10. That's an income of $50 for the 100 cups, and then another $10, which is $60 in income. So pretty straightforward. They gave us the value of the independent variable. We had to figure out the value of the dependent variable. Income is dependent on the number of cups. All right, so remember, if I'm ever going too fast, you can always pause this. I encourage you to do that. You can always replay it. That's one of the beauties of me posting this online for you. If the expenses were $28, how many cups were sold? Okay, so they're giving us expenses. We got to figure out cups. That's going to be that equation. But this time's a little bit different because we're being given the dependent value, and we have to figure out the independent value. So we got to kind of work backwards. So this time we're going to subtract 15 from both sides of this equation. And these numbers mean something too. It's that, we have to, we know there's $15. Where did the additional $13 in expenses come from? Okay, so now we got to make up for those $13 in expenses for, each 10 cents that on each cup. Not sure that I'm doing a great job of explaining that, but at any rate, 13 divided by 0.1 is 130 cups. So 130 cups will get us $28 in expenses. All right, so write a simplified equation for the profit P in terms of the cups sold C. And big hint here, actually, profit equals income minus expenses. Profit equals income minus expenses. So, well, here's our income, 0.50C plus 10. There's our income right over here on the left. And here's our expenses, 0.10C plus 15. That's this equation. So we're just going to, subtract the expenses from the income. To do that, though, you got to remember that you're not only subtracting the 0.10C, you're also subtracting the 15. So that always gets some people. So then we can combine like terms. 0.50C minus 0.10C is 0.40C. Think about it like this. Our income is 50 cents per cup. Our expenses are 10 cents per cup. That's actually a profit of 40 cents per cup. It's, just think about it like that. And then, 10 minus 15 is -5. Again, think about it like this. We have an income we know of $10 every day, but we have expenses of $15 every day. That's a profit of -$5 every day off the bat before we sell any cups. So there's our equation. All right, and then, we could use that equation. In fact, maybe we do that right now. So, we'll wait on that. All right, next up, the following table shows how much 3 students get donated for a walkathon based on the number of kilometers they walk. So Johnny's got 5 sponsors, each donating $3 per kilometer. Susie's got 7 sponsors, each donating $2 per kilometer, plus $5 each. That's nice of them. They're giving us $5 without walking anything. And then Billy's got 6 sponsors that are giving him $10 regardless of how much they walk. And then these would be expressions for how much they're getting total from their sponsors. 5 sponsors times $3 per kilometer per sponsor, so on. So you just multiply them. All right, but that was kind of done for us. So now we just have to write a simplified equation for the total amount the team will walk if they all walk, or total team will earn if they all walk the same distance. So in other words, add up their 3 total earnings. Okay, so we're going to do Johnny plus Susie plus Billy. All right. So Johnny, there's his total. Susie, there's her total. And Billy, there's his total. Okay, we do want simplified. This is nowhere close to simplified. The first thing we can do is rewrite each one of those. So 5 times 3K is really 15. You know, if he's getting 5 people to each give him $3 per kilometer, he's really getting $15 per kilometer. 7 times 2K plus 5 is 14K plus 35 using the distributive property. 7 times 2K is 14K. 7 times 5 is 35. And obviously 6 times 10 is 60. Not simplified yet because we can still combine like terms. 15K and 14K makes 29K, and 35 and 60 makes 95. Meaning, even if this team walks 0 miles, they're still going to get $95 in donations. Between the 7 people that said they'd give Susie $5 and the 6 people that said they'd give Billy $10, that's $95. But in addition to that, we're going to get another $29 for every kilometer the team walks, because Johnny's got those 5 people saying they give him $3 per kilometer, and Susie's got those 7 people saying they'll give him $2 per kilometer. That all adds up to this. All right, so if they all walk 5 kilometers, how much will the team earn? Well, we're going to use this equation that we just wrote, and we're going to put in the 5 kilometers for K. And then we'll just do, okay, $29 times 5 kilometers is $145, plus the $95 that they get no matter what. It's $240 in total donations. Now, we could go back and, figure out, 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 times 5 is 75, and 2 times 5 is 10 plus 15, or plus 5 is 15 times 7. I'm getting a little lost. We could plug 5 in for both of these K's as well and do all the math and figure out what each person got donated, but it would still add up to 240. This equation's a lot simpler to use. All right, so now we got a different lemonade stand. Tried to separate these a little bit in the question so we wouldn't get confused. They come up with different equations. One's based for profit based on cups sold, and the other one is cups based on temperature. The idea being that the more cups you sell, the more profit you make, and the higher the temperature, the more cups we sell, maybe. All right, so we're at a simplified equation for profit in terms of temperature. All right, so right now we have profit in terms of cups sold, but we want profit in terms of temperature, and we can do that in one step. We're just going to replace C with 8T minus 500. They're the same thing, so we're going to do 0.25 per cup times the number of cups minus 10, and we know that the number of cups is based on temperature, 8T minus 500, so we'll just replace C with 8T minus 500. All right, at that point, basically we've got a new equation right now. We've got a equation for profit based on temperature. Profit is now based on temperature instead of profit being based on cups. All we did was make that one switch, but it's not simplified. We can simplify doing the distributive property. 0.25 times 8T, or a quarter of 8T, is 2T, and 0.25 times negative 500 is negative 125. And then we can combine like terms, because negative 125 minus 10 is negative 135. So there's our brand new equation. All right. And if the temperature was 90 degrees Fahrenheit, what would you expect the profit to be? Well, we've got this profit equation that's based on temperature, so I think I'm going to use that, and I'm just going to put 90 in for the temperature. 2 times 90 is 180, and 180 minus 135 is a $45 profit. All right, so we could do this a little bit differently. We could go, okay, well, if the temperature is 90, I know that 8 times 90 minus 500 That's the number of cups I'm going to sell. And then I could do 0.25 times 220 minus 10, and that'll be the profit I make. It's still $45, okay? So I had to use two equations, the green and then the blue, to get this, as opposed to just using my brand new red equation to do it. All right, now let's evaluate some expressions. This is actually more basic skills than what we were doing right off the bat, but it says if R is 6 and S is 2. All right, so basically 6 plus 2. Crazy stuff. As long as you know what the word evaluate means, I would think you'll get that. All right, this one. We've got F is -4, G is 4. So F is -4, G is 4, F is -4. We got to do multiplication first. -4 times 4 is -16. I like to look at adding a negative as just subtracting. And then -16 minus 4 is -20. All right, so this says P times Q times R. P is 2. Q is 4.7. R is 3.1. You just grab a calculator at that point. I mean, you can plug it in exactly like that. 2 times 4.7 times 3.1, and that gives us 29.14. All right, so now we got to write our own expressions. Write an expression for the sequence of operations described. Do not simplify any part of the expression. I don't know that any of them could be simplified anyway in this case, but add h and 6. Okay, so let's start there. There's h and 6 added together. Then multiply the result by 10. You take that h plus 6 and you multiply it by 10. That's it. Now the parentheses are a big deal. It doesn't really matter whether you put the 10 in front or behind, but the parentheses are a big deal. We don't want to multiply just h or just 6. We want to multiply h and 6 by 10. Next, add q to r. Okay, let's start there. There's q plus r. Then divide 6 by the result. So we want to take 6 and divide it by q plus r. We're dividing 6 by the result of the sum of q and r. J divided by the product of 8 and k. Okay, well, there's j divided by something. We want to divide by the product of 8 and k, which is 8k, or 8 times k. So j divided by 8k. J divided by 8k. Next, we're going to double y. That means multiply it by 2. And then we're going to subtract 2 from that result. So here was the result, and we're going to subtract 2 from that. All right, out of expressions, not totally, I mean, because obviously we have these expressions that represent volumes, but we're going to get into volumes a little bit more. Find the volume of a cylinder with a diameter of 6 feet and a height of 10 feet. Use 3.14 for pi and round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so here's the volume of a cylinder. It's the area of the base, which is a circle, pi r squared, times the height of the cylinder. We're being told to use 3.14 for pi. The diameter is 6, so the radius is 3. The diameter is 6, so the radius is 3, and the height is 10. You got to do exponents first, so 3 squared is 9. And at that point, we can grab our calculator and just punch it in. 3.14 times 9 times 10, and you get 282.6. Now, actually, I could have done the previous step as well. I mean, it's going to give me the exact same answer. So, I mean, this, I could get away without showing this, but I kind of am in that habit of showing it, and I think it helps me with solving equations like finding missing radius and heights like we're going to do here down the line. 282.6 cubic feet. All right, now we've got a cone. Okay, so here's the volume of a cone, 1/3 pi r squared h. So it's a cylinder, and then you divide it by 3, basically. All right, so we're given the radius is 4. Pi, we're being told to use 3.14, and the height is 15. Okay, 4 squared is 16. That's the only thing I changed. And then we can just plug it into the calculator just the way it looks here. I mean, that's why I'm writing it on the screen that way. So and that gives us 251.2. The other thing you do is kind of do it just like it's a cylinder. So get rid of the 1/3. So pi r squared h. So that would be a whole cylinder, and then you divide it by 3 to get a cone, and it's 251.2. So 251.2 cubic centimeters. Find the volume of a sphere with a diameter of 12. Okay, well, first of all, we have to know that the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. If it's not in your notes, that's a problem. 4/3 pi r cubed. This says the diameter is 12, so that means the radius is 6. Radius is always half of the diameter. I know that 6 cubed is 216. 6 to the 3rd power is 216. So I'm doing 4/3 times 3.14, because they told me to use that for pi, times 216, which is 904.32, round to the nearest tenth, 904.3 cubic inches. 904.3 cubic inches. All right, if the radius of a sphere is multiplied by 5, then the volume of the new sphere will be what times the original? Well, let's go over here and look at this. You know, if we take this value, this radius at 6, and multiply it by 5 and turn it into 30, what's that going to do to the overall volume? Well, let's try it. All right, so I'm going to do, instead of 216, I'm going to do 30 squared. All right, so there's my new volume. Okay. 4/3 pi, yeah. Instead of 6, oh, I did 6 squared. I want 6 cubed, or 30 to the 3rd power. There we go. Hold, please. There we go. All right. So 4/3 pi r cubed. Oh wow, that's a big difference. 113,040 compared to 904.3, which is what it was before. So watch what happens when I divide this by 904.32. It is 125 times the volume. 125 times this gives me that new volume. Okay, well, here's the way I like to think of it. Here's the volume of a sphere. They're saying that if you multiply the radius by 5, so if I just take that 5, you look at what's being done to the radius. It's being cubed. 5 cubed is 125. Let me start over. Radius of a cylinder is multiplied by 7. Then the volume of the new cylinder will be blank times the volume of the original. Okay, here's volume of a cylinder. They're saying if the radius is multiplied by 7. So what's being done to the radius? 7 squared is 49. 7 squared is 49. So if you take the radius of a cylinder and you multiply it by 7, the volume will be 49 times bigger. Let's go back and find a cylinder here. Number 15. So if we take that 3 right there and multiply it by 7, it would be 21. So we're going to do 3.14 times 21 instead of 3, because that's 7 times 3 squared times 10. So we're not changing the height at all. Okay, that would give us this. Okay, so it's this now. It used to be this before we multiplied the radius by 7. Watch what happens when I divide this by this. Divide it by 282.6. It becomes 49 times bigger. Exactly what I said it would be. 49 times bigger. If the height of the cone is tripled, then the volume of the cone will be blank times the original. Okay, so here's the volume of a cone. What do you know, if it's tripled, that means multiplied by 3. What happens to the height of the cone in the equation? Nothing happens to it. Okay, it's like stacking 3 cones on top of each other. You're just going to have 3 times the volume. Let me prove it to you. So here's a cone, okay? Right now the radius is, or the height is 15. If I triple it, it would be 45. So let's do 1/3 times 3.14 times 4 squared times 45. Triple the height. All that's going to do is triple the volume. That's all it did. All right. What is the volume of this cylinder? Okay, I mean, this is really kind of repeat stuff, just now we're given a diagram instead of information. So we have to identify, number one, here's the formula. Number two, we can see that the radius is 9 and the height is 6. And then there's something else too, is that we're not being told to use 3.14 for pi anymore. We're going to use an exact value of pi and give our answer in terms of pi. That doesn't change much. 9 squared is 81. 81 times 6 is 486. So our answer is 486 pi cubic yards. That is almost the same as 486 times 3.14. That's approximately 1,526 cubic yards. But the only exact way we can say is 486 pi cubic yards. It's like instead of calling square root of 2 1.41, we just call it the square root of 2. All right. Volume of the cylinder is 91.688 cubic centimeters. What's the radius? Okay. So now we're being told to work backwards. First of all, here's the volume of a cylinder, pi r squared times h. We're being given rather the volume, and we got to work backwards and figure out the radius. So we're being given the volume. We know we're going to use 3.14 for pi, and we know that the height right here is 7.3. I'm going to do 7.3 times 3.14. I did that on my calculator, 22.922. I'm going to divide both sides by 22.922. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. This is kind of like when we solve the Pythagorean theorem, and you get that the radius is 2. So if that radius is 2, I will get a volume of 91.688. This is more high-level stuff, you know, level 3. I don't know if I'd call it level 4, but definitely level 3. If you did your IXL practice and you asked questions, then you probably did better on this. The volume of this cylinder is 5,652 cubic centimeters. What's the height? Okay, so same idea. Here's the formula for volume of a cylinder. They've given us the volume, 5652. We're being told to use 3.14 for pi. We're being given the radius, it's 10. I can see it right there in the diagram, but we got to figure out the height. Okay, so this is just an equation that we have to solve to figure out the height. So first of all, 10 squared is 100. 3.14 times 100 is 314. And then you divide both sides by 314. 5652 divided by 314 is 18. So in order for this to have a volume of 5652, its height would have to be 18. Just solving equations, working backwards. Volume of this cone. Okay, well, first of all, we got to know the formula for volume of a cone. 1/3 pi r squared times h. 1/3 the volume of a cylinder. We got to know what to plug in. Okay, number one, we're being told to use pi, not 3.14 for pi. Number two, we have to know that the radius is 2. It's half of 4. And the height is 7. 2 squared is 4. And this is where it gets a little ugly, and maybe I should have made it work out a little bit prettier, but 4 times 7 is 28, and 28 is not divisible by 3. So we could say 28/3 pi, or you could do 28 divided by 3 and make it 9.3 repeating. So I'll be looking for either one of those when I correct people's work, but definitely we don't want this, and because we want the answer in terms of pi, we don't want to just do 1/3 times 3.14 times 4 times 7. Okay, we don't want that, even though that's what 9.3 pi is approximately. They're about the same thing. Okay, so we want 9.3 repeating pi, or 28/3 pi. I highly doubt anybody's going to write 28/3 pi. All right, what is the volume of this sphere? Give your answer in terms of pi again. Okay, so 4/3 pi r cubed. We know that the radius is 6. We know that 6 cubed is 216. And all we got to do is 4/3 times 216. So 4/3 times 216 is 288. So our answer is 288 pi cubic inches. 288 pi cubic inches. We actually did this one right, where was it? Maybe it's coming up. Sorry, ignore me. What's the volume of this sphere? Okay, well, now we're being told to use 3.14 for pi. All right, so there's the same formula. We do have to figure out that the radius is half of 37.4, so that's 18.7. 18.7 cubed is this ugly number, 6,539.203. When I multiply all those out on my calculator, I get 27,377.5 cubic yards. Find the volume of this shape. Okay, look at all this work I got going. Okay, so here's my battle plan. Blue, I'm going to find the volume of that cone. Green, I'm going to find the volume of that cylinder. Red, I'm going to add them together. And then I'll have the volume of the shape. All right, so volume of a cone, 1/3 pi r squared h. 1/3 pi, we're being told to use 3.14. The radius is 6, right down there. It's the same. That distance right there is 6. 6 squared times 7, the height of the cone. 6 squared is 36, and when you multiply those all out, you get 263.76. It's cubic meters. Cubic meters. I'm not going to round yet, actually. I'm going to wait. Volume of a cylinder, pi r squared times h. Area of the circle times the height of the cylinder. Pi, 3.14. Radius, the same as the cone, 6. Height, 8. It's actually taller. All right. 6 squared is 36 again. Multiply those all out, 904.32. So the volume of the total shape is the volume of the cone plus the volume of the cylinder. The volume of the cone is 263.76, and the volume of the cylinder is 904.32. And those add up to 1,168.1. I rounded to the nearest tenth because that's what I was told to do, cubic meters. I did put one more on my version. So I'm going to go through that right now. Feel free to keep watching if you want. Find the volume of this ramp, and very similar to this one, I see it as a combination of two shapes. Instead of a cone and a cylinder, I see a rectangular prism and a triangular prism. So I'm going to do the volume of the rectangular prism plus the volume of the triangular prism added together. Okay. Volume of the rectangular prism. Length times width times height. That's it. Just length times width times height. So that is 10 for the length, 5 for the width, 8 for the height, or whatever. Doesn't matter what order you do them in. You get 400 cubic feet. 400 cubic feet. Now a triangular prism is just half of that. Okay, it's like cutting a rectangular prism in half. So we just got to do half of all the dimensions multiplied together. So in this case, the dimensions are 6 by 8 by 5. 6 by 8 by 5. And I knew this was 6 because if this was 10, this was 10, and this is 10, and I knew that this and this had to add up to 16, so I knew that was 6. All right. And then if I just multiply all those out, I get 120. So all I'm doing is 400 plus 120, which is 520 cubic feet. 520 cubic feet. Long video for you. Hopefully you didn't need to watch the whole thing. I mean, you would have had to watch half of it if you want to do a retake, whatever. But boy, that took me a long time to make, both prep and recording right now. So I hope you got a lot out of it. Definitely ask me questions if you have any. I'm sure the in terms of pi stuff is blowing some people's minds. Maybe the working backwards and finding radiuses and height, that's probably blowing people's minds. I can help you with that. Just come ask me questions. Have a good one.